Another win for Jake Paul and another win for Tommy Fury. Are they set for a mega fight in America? And do boxing fans want to see them get in the ring and get it on once and for all? Josh Warrington is set for his hugely anticipated rematch this weekend. Will it be repeat or will it be revenge? More controversy in boxing surrounding a British title fight. When will it ever end? And breaking news today from Sky Sports and Top Rank. This is Lights Out. I am Faisal Khan, and this is podcast 38 of the Lights Out Boxing Podcast. And I must say, I'm delighted and privileged to be joined by the team Shoebox Boys, including Mr. Eithan James and Kieron Conway, and Kieron's old man, James Conway, who might as well give you the heads up, is having a few technical difficulties right now. But he's on now. He's joined at the right time. You know, better late than never. Guys, thank you very much for taking your time out to join me. How's it going?
All good here. All good here.
Brilliant, excellent. It's good to have you guys. It's good. Listen, if James keeps on appearing or reappearing or going off screen, it doesn't matter. Okay, it's not for James as this technical lifestyle, but we'll try and do what we can. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind the viewers out there, if they haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Please make sure you follow us on all the social media platforms. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, don't forget to hit the follow button as well. And of course, we'll be sharing the guys from the Team Shoebox's links in our description as well. Just like we do with any other podcast, we like to sort of warm everybody up with a quick fire question, which is open to all of the panel. And today's quick fire question is: what was your favorite era in boxing and why? I think because James has been around a lot longer than us, it's only right he goes first for this question. So, James, if you're not having any technical issues, what was your favorite era in boxing and why? Okay, then. So we'll go towards Kieron. Kieron, your favorite era in boxing and why?
It'll be our era, because it's the one that I'm involved in myself, and it's the one that I study the most and watch the most of. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not as clued up as everyone else seems to be in boxing for other eras like the 80s and things like that. I'm not as clued up as other people. I like to watch what's around now, particularly people that I could fight. So I'd have to say our era now.
Eithan, your favourite era in boxing and why?
Yeah, I'll probably say ours as well. Like, obviously, Kieron's a little bit older than me, but maybe a couple of years back as well, seeing all the lads that turned pro before me and seeing where they're going. Obviously, like I'd say, like a couple of years, as in like the last 10 to 15 years, and just seeing how everyone's progressing. Obviously, there's been some big fights in the last 15 years, not just for world boxing, but for British boxing as well. So I've been lucky enough to experience that and not be around that. But yeah, I'd say our era.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've been spoiled for choice, haven't we? The last 10 years as well. We've had some great fights. We've had some great fighters come through. Boxing's definitely gone to another level over the last 10 years. My favourite era in boxing, I can't knock this era. Hopefully it just gets better and better. But I think my favourite era will be the mid-90s, especially the heavyweights, when you had the likes of Tyson and Bruno, Lewis, Holyfield, Riddick Bowe. I believe in that era, everybody fought everybody. And I believe that's why that era is 10 times better than our current heavyweight era. So, obviously, things don't work out as they always do in boxing. We all would like to see Tyson Fury fight Anthony Joshua. We'd like to get all those big fights in the heavyweight division. But unfortunately, this is how boxing is. It is a business. It doesn't work in the way we want it to. It's good to see we've got James on, so we'll try and get his thoughts on it. James, what was your favourite era in boxing and why?
Era?
Yeah.
Joining this podcast from the looks of it.
No. Your favourite era in boxing?
Not era.
Era?
Yeah.
I like the 80s. I was only very young at the time, but that's where my childhood memories are from. My first experience was like Kirtland Lang, Chris Poyet. They were my favourites back then, and obviously then the Hearns, Hagler, Duran, that little the trio there.
James, I just want to get your thought on something. As you mentioned, that 80s era. You mentioned Hagler, Hearns, Leonard, and Duran. What's your thoughts on when the likes of Ryan Garcia, Tank, Loma, Lopez, Lomachenko, these guys, when they get compared to that era?
Yeah, it's really difficult comparing eras, I think. It's hard enough being the best in your own era. Well, comparing different eras, it's like comparing George Best to Ronaldo, isn't it? Technology, things change, technical things change, technology changes, training methods change. So I prefer not to do it myself.
Fair enough. Well, listen, like I said to the boys, we're very lucky with the current era we've got. And hopefully, we'll get to see these big fights being made, not just in the heavyweight division, but also at the 154 division, the era that Ethan's involved in as well. There's some big fights out there to be made. Let's move on. We'll obviously bring up the first topic of today's podcast. Eithan James moves to 6-0 with a very impressive performance last Saturday night. And we'll talk a bit about Kieron's preparation for JJ Metcalf. I want to start off with you, Eithan. How would you sum up your performance on Saturday night?
Yeah, it all went to plan. We, me and the coaches, me, James, Eithan, and Alex, we all had a plan and we stuck to it. And it's probably, I've been told, my best performance to date, even through the amateurs and in the pro ranks. So I was happy with my performance, and I hope everyone else was as well.
James, what was the most positives that you take out of Ethan's performance? He's moved to 6-0 now, and what's the plan for perhaps the rest of the year? And when can we maybe start thinking about getting him in title fights?
So the positives to come out of it was like what Ethan said. We'd gone away and worked on certain things, and he performed punch perfect, in my opinion. Everything that we'd gone through camp trying to improve on, I saw that in the ring on Saturday night. With the exiting strategy that we had, create the space, create the opening, score, and exit without getting tagged, because we knew that this fella was a lot more dangerous than what maybe he looked on paper. He's got a lot of Queensberry experience, got a lot of amateur experience. He was one fight away from going to the Tokyo Olympics. We knew he was a far more dangerous opponent than what he was on paper, and I thought he performed fantastically, really. And I've known Ethan since he's 11-year-old, so for me, it was one of it, if not the best performance I've ever seen of him.
Yeah, listen, I was very impressed with how Ethan performed on Saturday night. It was a really good fight. It was I agree with you guys as well. I think it was one of his best performances. But Ethan, obviously, you're the one getting in the ring. Is there anyone that you've got your eye on, and when do you think you'll be ready for title fights?
That's down to the coaches and the managers. But look, I'm just trying to progress as much as I can with each fight. Obviously, we want step ups. I'm not shy to say that I've been looking for better people, and better people aren't taking the fights. So obviously, we're looking to step up in opponents and hopefully step up in rounds as well. Obviously, just taking our time with it. But I'd say within the next year, for a title fight, hopefully, like some sort of title at least.
One thing I've noticed about, obviously since boxing started, getting back to business, is that some fighters are getting pushed a lot quicker these days due to the pandemic. James, did you think it's the right move to take with young fighters such as Ethan, or do you think it's just a case of take your time with them, build them up slowly, and then perhaps put them into the deep end?
For me, there's got to be a happy medium. However, as you can see, like if you follow Kieron's career, we're not looking for easy bouts, padding records. We're looking for tiny step ups each time, which everyone should be. But maybe if there's an opportunity there, it will get taken from anybody within our gym. Ethan's keen to kick on. Obviously, we're not going to go, right, Ethan, let's go into a British title fight after he's had 6 bouts. But equally, we don't want to be boxing people losing records. He's won Commonwealth gold medal. He's won European silver medal. He knows his way around a boxing ring, and there's no point in going over dead ground, if you know what I mean. There's no point in him keep fighting people that's, let's be honest, one bout out of 50, turning up just to get paid, getting through the rounds. He needs to be applying himself and keeping his focus, and the only way we can do that is by giving him them tiny step-ups. So I can see why people pad their records out, but it's not really something that we want to be doing. We want to be kicking on and just fighting tiny amount better opponents each time. And and I am keen for Ethan to kick on, just as Kieron did when he was coming through the ranks.
Well, it's exciting times, especially for Ethan. As a young fighter coming up, he's moved to 6-0 now, so the future's bright for him. Let's talk a bit about Kieron, because he's got a big fight come October 9th. And for me, one of the most exciting divisions right now, especially British domestic-wise, that 154 division. Kieron, start with you. How is preparation going for the fight coming up against JJ Metcalf?
So far, it's going really well. I stayed in the gym the whole time since my last fight anyway, to be fair. But since the fight was spoke about, there's been more focus towards him and making adjustments towards what I need to do on the fight night against James Metcalf. It's going really well, to be fair. And we've still got a good way to go. Still got 5-6 weeks to go. And I'm just looking forward to it more and more each day as it comes.
We've got a lovely little comment down there from Alex Lee Guevel. Not just the most handsome trainer in British boxing, the man talks sense. It's good to see you got a good following down there, James. Kieron, obviously, he definitely does. Kieron, what type of a fight are you expecting with JJ Metcalf? Because if you're going on anything with his fight, such as against Ted Cheeseman, you could be in a potential all-out war. Is that what you're expecting come October the 9th?
No. I'm expecting him to try and make it a war, and I'm expecting him to. I expect that he thinks that he's able to bully me around the ring, which is just not the case. I'm a big guy. I'm gonna get in there big. I'm not getting in there at super welterweight. I'm getting in there at light heavyweight, and it's gonna be the other way around. I'm gonna dictate the fight. I'm gonna dictate the ring. I'm too good. I'm too big, and I'll take nothing from the Cheeseman fight. I'm better than him too, and this is going to be a totally different fight. This is going to be a one-way win for me.
You was involved in the biggest card of the year, being on the Canelo, Billy Joe Saunders undercard. That experience for me does wonders for anybody in their career. But what's that experience going to do for you throughout the next 18 months? Not only just fighting on a Canelo undercard, but also being in the surroundings of top fighters like Canelo and Billy Joe Saunders, and being on a big bill like that.
Yeah, the experience for that card was priceless for me, in and out of the ring. I just didn't turn up on that night, but I took a hell of a lot from that fight. Like I said, in and out of the ring, and I'll be able to take that through my career. And I'm gonna show where that experience counts.
Regardless of the result, James, I mean, how important is it that Kieron takes on what he took from that experience on the Canelo and Billy Joe Saunders undercard for future fights? Obviously there's a big fight with JJ Metcalf. It's on the big bill. You've got the rematch with Liam Smith and Anthony Fowler. Obviously Kieron's now at a stage where he's going to be pushing for these big fights and potentially, perhaps maybe even world honors in the next 18 months.
Yeah, the experience was fantastic, and like Kieron said, in and out of the ring. Maybe some things that we could do differently if we had the time over again, and that would be the most important things that we took out of that fight, and the process to get in there. I suppose a lot of people know some of the trials and tribulations just even getting to the fight, and as turning up at so late in the day. But it was what it was, and it was like me and Kieron only actually speaking about it earlier. Even though it weren't the most, it wasn't the best thing that ever happened in Kieron's career. It potentially could be. It was fantastic, and he would probably do it all over again if the same situations was put in front of him, because he and we believed, and we still do believe, that Kieron is better than Sissoko. So even with all the disadvantages that we was going out there with, we still give it a shot, and it just wasn't to be. But there's definitely some things that he's took away from that experience, and things that he will definitely do differently.
Well, look, regardless of the result, for me, I personally think it does wonders for Kieron's career, and it definitely sets him up with, I mean, he said that he never turned up on the night, but if that's coming from a guy that didn't turn up on the night, still managed to score a knockdown. I'd like to see what the guy's capable of when he actually does turn up. But listen, Kieron, best of luck. October 9th is going to be a brilliant fight, and Ethan, many congratulations to you on moving on to 6-0. Guys, let's move on because there's a big show to talk about this Saturday night. Ethan, let's start with you. Repeat or revenge on Saturday night? What do you think happens in Headingley?
I'd like to see revenge for Warrington, being a British fighter, but obviously I can't see much style that he can change for his fight against Lara. But hoping he'll be able to change it on the night. But especially with all the fans back, hopefully he can get geared up for this fight and put on a good performance. But I think I see Lara coming out with repeat again.
James, what do you think what went wrong for Josh Warrington in the first fight? You're a trainer. You obviously he's trained by his old man, just like you train your son. From a coach's trainer's perspective, what do you think Warrington did that sort of pushed him towards that performance and the result ending up the way it did?
To be fair, I don't really want to sort of sit here criticising, because he said anyone can sit there and criticise. Mate, Josh boxes the way Josh boxes, and he's been really, really successful at doing it. Multiple punches in bunches. But when you got a guy that can sort of you can't really affect him. You're rattling 3 or 4 off him, and you can hit bloody hard back. It's really difficult. Maybe if he just comes in at the angles and exits angles a little bit quicker with the feet, he might be able to turn it round. But it's really rare that rematches are reversed, isn't it? So it's easy for me to say, well, he's got to get on his toes, he's got to be in and out a lot quicker. But sometimes if that's not your style, it's not your style. It's not what's got him success, is it? And maybe the no fans there, I think possibly affected him. But again, we've all had spars with no fans there and performed well, haven't we? And so it's really difficult. I'd love him to turn it around, because I think he's had an absolutely fantastic career, but it's going to be really tough for him, isn't it?
One thing before we started off the podcast is I mentioned, ring inactivity, and I believe it plays a massive factor in anybody's career. Kieron, do you think that's potentially one of the reasons why it's a fight between Josh Warrington and Mauricio Lara?
Yeah, it could be. But he's got balls. He's got big balls. The way he's getting back in there after it was pretty devastating, to be fair. The way that the fight ended. And I'm sure he'll come with a pretty similar game plan. Hopefully this time it works. I like Josh. I really do hope he wins. I hope he does pull it off. I'm not even a football fan, but when he's fighting, I'm a big Leeds fan. I like getting on it. I like getting on the bandwagon and joining in, and I'll be sitting here rooting for him.
It's a big fight for me. I mean, I would definitely label it as a make or break for him. But can you guys see any way back if he does lose the rematch?
Yeah, 100%. There's still
really? Can you think? Do you think he can come back?
There's still other routes for him to take. Just because there's one lad that's not his style. Everyone's always got that one opponent that they're not got their number on, or someone's got their number. He's beat some big champions on his way up to meeting Lara. Just because you've got one person that's in your way, there's still fights for him to take, still routes for him to go. I don't think it's the end for him, but it will be a big loss. But he can still come back, I think, personally.
James, what if you're in the corner on Saturday night? What approach do you take? Because we saw Joshua take a different approach with Ruiz. Yes, the size and difference is completely massive. But Joshua, I believe, in the back of his mind, always knew Ruiz can hurt him. He'd always perhaps have his number if they slugged it out. What approach do you take in this fight come Saturday night if you are in the corner of Josh Warrington?
Very similar. You have to sort of go away and not reinvent yourself. Just do everything a lot better. Like the footwork, especially. The last place you want to be is in front of that Lara. He obviously bangs like hell, doesn't he? So you've got to use the angles a lot better. Fast feet, fast hands. Maybe not stay there to be so greedy with quite so many punches. You know, I know he really likes to throw flurries. Maybe to take one of them off. So you.
I think we've got a few
And he's gone.
technical issues there, but hopefully James will get back on the way. I can see Kieran's nodding his head there. Conor Benn also features on the card come Saturday night. He takes on Adrian Granados, one of the most rising stars in boxing. You know, I mean, I like to look at Conor Benn, and I don't even look at him as Nigel Benson anymore. I look at him as the Conor Benn now. The way he's moving, you know, the way he's handling his business in the ring, would we say that a win on Saturday night pushes him maybe to a world title shot, or perhaps fights with the likes of Amir Khan? You know, we've heard Adrian Broner. You know, we've even heard Mikey Garcia could be a potential opponent if he wins on Saturday night.
Yeah, I hope so, because I hope he does get one of these fights, and I think he can win as well. I think that I've never seen someone improve the way he has so quickly, to be fair. I really do think he can go there and upset one of these world champions, world level fighters that think they're above him. Yeah, so I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that happen.
I mean, a lot of people say that, you know, take your time with him. Don't sort of perhaps push him onto world level straight away. There's still good fights, you know, down at domestic wise. You know, there's a fight with Michael Mickinson people have mentioned. You know, a lot of people want to see him fight Florian Marku. But guys, from what you obviously you're the trainers, you're the boxers. You know, put yourself in his boots right now. What do you think is the best move for him? You know, granted, if he gets a win on Saturday night.
I think he should push on while he can. Like, I'm not saying he push on while he can, because he probably could still go there. But them fights down at domestic level will still be there if he's not successful. Like, he's a hungry fighter. He's progressed so much in the last 3 years. It'll be good for him to keep pushing on and fight these top lads while he's in his prime. Like, obviously these domestic fights he could come back down to, but it'll be good to see where he could go.
I've got a comment here from W. Riles. Warrington has effed up. He will get it worse. He was set up for going to Frank. Everybody's got their opinion, and listen, that's his opinion, and he's definitely entitled to it. Talk about Katie Taylor. She obviously defends her world titles as well on Saturday night. James, Katie Taylor, does she get the W, or can Jennifer Hand prove to be a tough test for her, maybe even shock her on Saturday night?
I honestly don't know enough about Jennifer Han, but
okay.
As far as I'm concerned, Kate is absolutely outstanding. You know, she's put female boxing to a new level.
Yes, I agree. She's definitely, you know, listen, she's adored by a lot of people. I mean, I'm no expert, but I think she gets hit a lot, though. I do believe she takes a lot of punches to the face, but she's an exciting fighter. I can't take that away from her. Guys, what's the best situation for Katie Taylor? Everybody says she's going to win on Saturday night. They're expecting for her to walk through Jennifer Han. What would you guys like to see next for Katie Taylor if she comes out of a win on Saturday night?
There's some big fights out there. There's even from my own town, there's big fights there to be made for her. With Chantel Cameron. That'd be a hell of a fight. So a win for Katie Taylor, yeah, we all will expect it, but she's got to work to win. She's got to work to win. It's not a given right, so she's got to go in there and win first before these other fights are in her head at all. To be fair,
yeah, I'd like to see the rematch from Natasha Jonas. I think it was a lot closer than people think. I think that's a great fight. Ethan, you a fan of the rematch with Natasha Jonas, or as Kieran said, Chantel Cameron?
Yeah, I'm probably more interested in the Jonas fight than anything, because obviously she's another big UK name, and that was probably the most intrigued I was for a Katie Taylor fight, apart from was it the German girl she fought? What's her surname?
Bassoon.
Yeah, Bassoon. That's it. Like, probably those were the two biggest fights I was interested with Katie Taylor, but because obviously they're both, like, after the first fight with Bassoon, it was an interesting fight for a rematch. And then obviously Jonas coming out. Jonas is, like, I've always found UK fighters interesting, so good, like, clash between them two would come up again. That'd be interesting.
We've got a few more comments we'll read from here. One from Michael Stevenson. There's only one James Conway. I think, James, you know the rest of the lyrics to that song. Shout out to Mike Stevenson. Again, another prodigy of the great Team Shoebox Boxing Gym. He was on our last podcast, a guy that we know very well. And, of course, we've got another comment here from W. Riles. Why isn't Ben calling out Virgil Ortiz and Boots Ennis, who are in his peers? Avanesian ICE's him, Ben, who has done nothing in the UK, all of a sudden world class. I mean, look, that just goes back to my point. You know, there are still fights, perhaps maybe not a level above, but look, I like the Avanesian fight. I think it's a great fight. Guys, what do you think? David Avanesian, if he wins on Saturday night, could that be the next move potentially for him?
Yeah. That's a good
But
fight. But
there's a lot of fights out there around their weight division. Like, doesn't matter if you're winning or losing. There's still big fights for anyone. Like, obviously, the Josh Kelly fight could be there for someone. Obviously, Avanesian for Ben. There's loads of fighters around that weight that even if fighters are losing or winning, there's still matchups there for everyone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and
100%.
no one's calling out that Virgil Ortiz, are they?
He's a heavy hitter, and he definitely he's one entertaining fighter to watch. I think if you look at the next 5 to 10 years of boxing, guys like yourself, and then you look at fighters like Virgil Ortiz, and of course someone like an Edgar Berlanga, you know the next 5-10 years in boxing are going to be super hell exciting. But we'll move on now. We'll talk about another topic. Obviously, we'll talk a bit about Eithan's show on Saturday night, because Anthony Yarde returned with a win on Saturday night, and there was a lot of controversy surrounding the British title fight between Sam Maxwell and Akeem Ennis-Brown. We'll talk a bit about Anthony Yarde. As I mentioned, he got back into the ring and stopped his opponent in the first round. All roads now lead to October the 9th when he takes on Lyndon Arthur in their rematch. Look, I don't want to talk too much about the opponent. A lot of people made a big fuss of it over Twitter. They said that he didn't get the work that he needed. One round is not enough to prepare himself for a rematch like Lyndon Arthur. But the rematch with Lyndon Arthur, for me, I don't want to take nothing away from Anthony Yarde. I believe that's the biggest fight of his career. I think that's a fight he 100% has to win, and he's got to look good in winning that fight. How do you see that fight panning out?
Same again, I think. I think Lyndon Arthur does the basics very well. Like, he won with the jab. Like, what else is there? Like, a good jab will win your fights. Don't matter what else you've got. If you stick to your basics well, it can win your fights. And I just think if Lyndon Arthur sticks to it again, he comes out with the win.
James, Anthony Yarde, what's your thoughts on him as a fighter?
What my thoughts on Anthony Yarde? I don't think he's come through the same way as what others have, if you know what I mean. He has had a little. He's been looked after, I do feel, a little bit more, and then shot into stardom. Going to the Lyndon Arthur versus Yarde bout, I actually thought Lyndon Arthur would win the first time, just through styles. It was a lot closer than I actually thought, to be fair. I thought Lyndon Arthur would keep it nice, long, sharp, and get the win. And it did come off that way. Yarde, I do think is an exceptional talent, but I don't know. There just seems to be something slightly missing defensively. But yeah, I like both fighters, but I just see that Lyndon Arthur seems to be a bit more well schooled, if you know what I mean. Even with his Philly shell defense every now and again in his low lead hand, I do think that he's got basic boxing skills, far superior. So, and on his power.
I'm in two ways about this. I thought after the Kovalev fight he'd move to another level. I can't remember who said it the other night, but they said if you look at his career all over, his best win is against Dex Spellman, and this is a guy that's fought for the British title and fought for a world title. And look, I take nothing away. I think he's got huge potential to be a great fighter. But I do think there are certain basic.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's what I sort of meant. Like, he's not done it the most orthodox way, has he? Like, he hasn't chosen to avoid certain opponents. He's been propelled past certain opponents, and in my opinion, rushed. You know, he should. I'm assuming he was a novice amateur. You know, maybe 20 bouts or something. And he hasn't had a lot of ring time as a pro because he used to bang everybody out. So I thought, you know, maybe they should have just took the time with him before the Kovalev thing. He done fantastic, but then maybe manoeuvred back into a position where he could get rounds in and come through. You know, a bit like Boaxi. I thought they've done really well with Boaxi with their opponents, where I think Yarde, that they've maybe matched him a little bit too easily. And then he got caught out.
Kieron, when we talk about a fighter, especially a British fighter, you know, majority of the boxing fan base, including myself, and I'm pretty sure you guys as well, will say it should be British, European, and world route. And now, if you look at it, you know, 3 years ago, he's fighting for a world title. Now he's coming back down to British level, and then he loses a British title fight. Would you agree that he's not been, I don't know, maybe managed the correct way, or do you think he's been pushed too quick?
You could look at it both ways, to be fair. I don't know which way to look at it, to be fair. Because he's not, I'm not going to lie to you, because he's not in my weight division, I don't know too much about that division at all. But yeah, it does seem like there was a bit of a rushed thing with the Kovalev fight, and now he's come back and fighting guys like last week. Yeah, it is a bit of a weird management going on there, but
there's nothing in between, is there? They're either really bad or really good. You know, there's not a lot in between, and that's the bit where you
maybe a few more learning fights would have been handy. But he's doing well. He's doing well. Whatever he's got in front of him, he's doing what he's got to do. It's the Kovalev fight, put on a good performance.
We've got a comment here. Yarde should have gone to America and linked up with a black American trainer. Now, another guy that gets quite a lot of stick is his current trainer, Tunde Ajayi. Listen, everybody has their own methods, and everybody, you know, does it the way they want with their fighters. But Eithan, what would you say about Anthony, you know, in terms of how he's set up in fights, especially, you know, looking back at the Kovalev fight? You know, for me, I personally do think experience played a massive part in that fight, but I also felt it was a slight missed opportunity because I believe with the right sort of game plan, he could have beaten Kovalev and he could have beaten him a lot earlier. And he did trouble him, I believe, it was in the 8th round. But what have you made of the way he's set up to fight?
Yeah, well, like they said, he hasn't had a lot of experience, especially at world level where Kovalev's fought big names like Canelo, he's fought Andre Ward. There's loads of big names he's fought, and where Yarde's jumped straight in with him with not really any big names. Obviously, I think it was he's just gone in there with no game plan whatsoever because obviously he's not had his ring experience, but obviously he performed really well. So to see what he did with so little experience, like if he would have took his time a bit more with waiting for the fight, he probably could have had a different outcome. Like, to be fair, he probably could have got the win if he didn't. Like, obviously, he was a bit novice and blew himself out a bit, and then that's when Kovalev come back into the fight. But I thought he could have done a lot better with the experience.
Read a few comments here. Kelly James, top team shoebox, shoe army. Listen, massive shout out to the boys from the shoebox. I must say, I must say, it's the most cleanest gym I've ever been to as well. And it was a couple of months ago when I popped down. So I'm looking forward to popping down to seeing the guys again. Another comment here. It was a sparring session for Kovalev, in my opinion. But again, look, I like to go back to the fact that Anthony Yarde, for me, had there been another 10 seconds on that 8th round, I believe he probably would have stopped Kovalev. Now, again, we say about experience, James. If you look back at after that 8th round, let's say you're in the corner, let's say you're Tunde Ajayi, with what Anthony's just done in that 8th round, what would your advice have been for the next round?
Well, he emptied this tank, didn't he? Leg it.
Yeah.
he was tightly spent, really, wasn't he? This is where your ring experience would have come in handy if he'd have had a few more rounds in him. Like, he was used to just blasting everybody out, and when the guy's still standing there, that's when you start doubting yourself most likely. And when you're totally spent and out on your feet because you're knackered, that's where the boxer works that little bit out for themselves, doesn't it? He's got to learn to. He should have been holding, just getting through it, getting through the next round.
I do think he's got a huge heart, though, Anthony Yarde, and we have to take into we have to take into consideration he had a horrible year as well last year. I believe his father and his grandmother passed away surrounding COVID, and yet still get in the ring a couple of months later and still fight for a British title says a lot about him. And listen, I know Anthony Yarde quite well. I've met him numerous of times. He's a hell of a guy, and I would like to see him fulfill his potential because I do believe he is a very good fighter. But let's just hope, October the 9th, he can get the win over Lyndon Arthur. It's a massive fight. It's a fight that I'm looking forward to. Obviously, on that card, we had 2 British title fights. Woodstock versus Kakache. Very good fight. Massive congratulations to Anthony Kakache. But the other one, Sam Maxwell versus Akeem Ennis-Brown. The build-up to it was entertaining as hell. Ethan, you was around that build-up as well. You've seen everything kick off. But the actual fight, for me, never really lived up to expectations. But the decision, in the end, Sam Maxwell awarded a judge's decision. Now, one thing that we are constantly getting in boxing is these controversial decisions from judges. When will it ever stop? God knows. But guys, what was your thoughts on Saturday night's decision in that British title fight?
So, I was chatting. So what happened? Ethan had just finished, and we'd gone up and met all Ethan's fans. So I was having a bit of a chat, and I was just catching glimpses of it. The problem with it was, if it was a really good fight, it'd have probably got hold of me and I'd have watched it better. But the bits that I saw, I can't really give a proper opinion. But the bits I saw, I just thought Akeem was catching Sam a little bit too clean, and Sam's work wasn't as clean as Akeem's. But I'm not in no position to really judge the contest, as I weren't really taking that much notice. I had hundreds of Shoe Army people all over me. So yeah, but the contest didn't grab me. You know what I mean? I really thought it was going to be a great fight, and I just couldn't get into it. So yeah, I can't really comment too much with that.
Kieron, you've also been in a situation where you've had the result go against you, where you felt as if you won the fight, i.e. the Ted Cheeseman fight. What does that do for a fighter when you've worked ever so hard in the ring against a good fighter like Ted Cheeseman, and in the end you've still not done enough in the judges' eyes, and the decision goes against you?
There's not really much you can do. You have to find the positives in every situation, especially those. The result is just result on paper and on a screen on your laptop. That's all. So it's just there for that. You know what you did good. You know what you did bad. You learn from what you've done. But main thing, take the positives from it. Come again. Go and get the fight again. Someone's got to get a result. And if it is controversial where someone won that a lot of people are saying that didn't win, then there's an opportunity for a rematch there, which they both would have learnt from that fight, and they can go and put it into the place in the next fight.
But Kieron, sometimes they don't want a rematch, do they?
Yeah, a lot of the time people don't want a rematch, i.e. Ted Cheeseman. But I'll get him one day. I'm coming. I'll get you one day.
We've got a few comments to read out here. Sorry, Kieron. Michael Stevenson again. I'm with my cousin, and she said that coach looks like Eddie Hearn. There is a bit of a resemblance there. Volts UK. I see Tunde as more of a motivational trainer. His system is flawed at British level. Never mind world. Well, again, everyone's got their own opinions. Ethan, the rematch between. Sorry, Kieron. What was you about to say there?
Like everyone's got their own opinion, and a lot of people say, "Oh, Anthony Yarde should have left this trainer. Anthony Yarde should have done this, should have done that." Whatever you do, someone's gonna have the opinion. If he had left his trainer, people would have been saying, "Why has he left his trainer? He's been with him so long." If he stays with his trainer, people want him to leave his trainer. You just got to do what you got to do.
If it had left, everyone would have called him a Judas.
Yeah,
you can never win in this sport. Ethan, just obviously before we move on to the next topic, would you like to see the rematch between Sam Maxwell and Akeem Ennis-Brown?
Yeah, if the fight catches fire and with the aggression they were showing, hopefully they start trading a bit more. But it's very hard for it to catch fire. Obviously, really, he's just a good mover. He's very awkward. He's throwing shots from all sorts of fucking angles. But Maxwell is a very. Oh, sorry, my bad.
It's all right, mate. Don't worry about it.
But I mean, Maxwell's very well schooled. Obviously, he's a sound lad. I've chatted to him a few times. I've known him now. But obviously, I'm glad he got the win. I think Keeminus Brown didn't handle himself too well in the build-up, but I think he probably nicked it a little bit. Like, obviously, listening to the commentators and obviously watching the fight. Obviously, I'm not the only one that thinks that, but I'm glad Maxwell got the win. I think he's a nice lad, but I'd love to see a rematch between the two, and I'm good to see where the next British title fight's coming for me in a couple of years' time.
Well, listen, fingers crossed when you're not far off. We've got a couple of more topics to discuss before we bring the podcast to an end. Let's move on to last Sunday night's action in Cleveland, Ohio. Jake Paul obviously got a decision win over Tyron Woodley, and Tommy Fury and Daniel Dubois started their American adventures with wins. Guys, I'm going to just have to ask you this honestly. Who fancies a crack at Jake Paul?
Yeah, for the money.
Look, I mean, at the end of the day, look, love him or hate him, the guy's still showing balls for getting into the ring. So, you got to take your hats off to him. But from what you've seen, I believe it's from 4 professional fights. Do you rate the guy's boxing skills? Has he got a career in boxing?
I don't think it's fair to say that he's got a career in boxing when there's a lot of other young prospects who've been doing it since they're 8 years old, putting in the time and effort from such a young age and changing their lives around, as in they're quitting work, putting the time in the gym, living the life. And then there's people like him and other YouTubers and just getting chucked into the glitz and the glam of it and getting to live the famous lifestyle when there's others working a lot harder and there's a lot of others more entitled to it and getting the publicity that they should. Obviously, fair play to them. They've built up what they needed to build up to be successful in life. But I think it's not fair to the actual people that in the sport have been working hard for it. You don't see other sports letting YouTubers go and jump on the football field because they'll sell 1,000 shirts and millions of in revenue. But fair play to them. They're doing what they're doing. They're making a living.
This is a problem and this is the problem that I have with it as well. Exactly what Ethan's just said in it. You got people like Ethan and Kieron that have been in the game since they've been very young. I don't know too much about your backgrounds, but I take it you guys probably don't have a full-time job, and I don't know what your what route you went through the education system. But from what I know, a lot of fighters, especially from a young age, jack it all in and just give their 100% commitment to boxing. And especially with what we've been through within the last 18 months due to the pandemic. When you look at, small hall boxing, how that's massively suffered over the last 18 months. Young fighters not being able to get the opportunities that they need to build their career. And then you've got these platforms that are investing millions of pounds or dollars into these guys like Jake Paul. And, for me, it's one thing to let the guy fight on a platform like BT Sport, but also to make it a pay-per-view event just did not sit right with me. Now, if you look at this in a sort of a long-term project, could this affect the young fighters coming up in boxing, guys?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think it could affect it, but I'm not against it. I'm all for it. It's not their fault that people would pay to watch them and not people that have worked hard all their life at it. It's not their fault.
Stop trying to get a fight with him just because he's your weight.
What they've done is they've took an opportunity, and I'm telling you now, if no matter what anyone says, if they were offered an opportunity like what they've got offered to go and piss everyone off in anything and get paid millions for it and just jump in and pick and choose what they do with it and they're still getting paid millions, they're gonna do it. They're not saying no. So I'm all for it. They've done their bit. They've done their bit by working hard on their YouTube, and it's brought views over to whatever they do. It just so happens that they chose boxing because there's a great opportunity for people to watch, and which means more money, which means the opportunities. They've just took the opportunity, and that's what it's about. That's what life's about. Take your opportunities. They took a risk. It could have worked out. It could not. But they took it. So fair play to them. And the people moaning about it, tough at the end of the day. Some people it works out. Some people it don't. And that's it.
James, where are you in terms of his boxing skills, Jake Paul? I mean, I watched the fight, obviously, the night after, because I had to go to work in the morning, so I couldn't stay up all night, as I probably would have done because I'm a big boxing fan and I like to see, because there's a lot of hype surrounding the fight. But what have you made of his 4 performances so far in boxing? And, given the fact that he just beat, I believe, a 5-time UFC world champion in Tyron Woodley?
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I haven't watched any. He's not fighting a boxer. As far as I'm aware, has he fought a boxer yet? Or I don't know. I've
A
not
basketball player and 2 UFC fighters, and I can't remember what the other one was, but I know the first one was a ex-basketball player.
Yeah,
But you watched them. You watched them.
I did. I did. Yeah.
That's it. They took the opportunity.
As boxing, so I don't treat it as boxing. So it just is what it is. If they're making a few quid doing whatever they want to do, they can do it. They could probably make the same money playing FIFA. Yeah, they're just choosing to do it in a boxing ring. It's not boxing as far as I'm concerned. So it don't interest me. I've not seen.
There's a lot of beef surrounding Jake Paul and Tommy Fury. Guys, I would like to see it, because obviously Tommy Fury is Tommy Fury, and Jake Paul, I think he can be entertaining at press conferences. I certainly liked what he did when he came face to face with Floyd Mayweather, but I don't think it ended up nicely for him. But do you guys want to see that Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury?
I ain't really bothered.
What about yourself, Kieron?
I think it'll be good for Tommy Fury to actually have a big fight. Obviously, he's having build-up fights now, but to have someone that's going to really come and test him, that'll show where he's at. Obviously, Jake Paul can actually fight a bit. Let's not take it away from me. He's actually a half decent boxer, but obviously, from just my point of view, I was just saying it's not fair on all the up and coming prospects to be pushed down just because of them. But he's got boxing ability, and it would actually be a good fight, I think, between Fury and Paul.
And another win for Daniel Dubois. Obviously, he stopped Joe Cusumano in the first round. I mean, he's only had 2 fights under Shane McGuigan, but where can you see that relationship going to in Daniel Dubois' career, James?
Again, I've only seen little clips of that fight on Twitter and that, but I don't know what sort of opponent it was. Again, the proof of being the pudding when he boxes somebody with a pulse, wasn't it? Shane's in the corner. I think Shane's pretty good trainer, to be fair. A lot of his lads or a lot of his boxers do improve, and hopefully, for Daniel's sake, he does improve.
Can I just say he does look like a cut man, Alex Gravel?
Who?
Alex. He's a spitting image of Alex.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, look, we'll move on now to our final topic of the podcast. Because Sky Sports today announced they're teaming up with Boxxerr and Top Rank, and I must say, for some of the names that they've signed today, you've got to give your hats off to them. They've snapped up Chris Eubank Jr., Savannah Marshall, Hughie Fury, Richard Riakpo. Their schedule is brilliant. They've obviously got the Joshua Usyk fight, the Valdez Constanzao world title fight. Savannah Marshall and Hughie Fury. It's good to see Sky Sports Boxing is still going ahead, obviously, without Matchroom and DAZN. Kieron, if I say anything, please don't take it the wrong way. I know you're currently with Matchroom and DAZN, and they've done a hell of a job over the last 5-6 years in terms of, putting boxing on where it is today. But like I said, it's good to see that Sky Sports Boxing have taken the next step. How excited are you guys to see that they've got Top Rank and Boxxerr closely with them and that they'll be putting on big shows in the future?
Yeah, it's great. Boxing is booming at the minute, and it's just getting better and better. So why not? And it's really good to see that Sky have managed to keep it going. There's more fighters getting opportunities. Yeah, it's good to see. I'm all for it. I like it.
What have you guys made of sort of the change? Obviously, we know Adam Smith and Matthew Macklin and Paulie Malignaggi from time to time were the sort of main commentators on Sky Sports with DAZN and Matchroom. But now you've got the likes of, I believe it's Carl Froch as well. What have you guys made of the change in terms of broadcast and the commentating on the Matchroom and DAZN shows?
I still think it's good. I just feel like Sky was so much more accessible for everyone to watch, the boxing. Obviously, for all the boxing fans that aren't so much clued up with technology and having to sign up and watch it through streaming on on a console or on a laptop, makes it so much harder for them to watch all the fights. I think Sky was a very good platform for everyone to watch, whether that be online or on just flicking through channels. Obviously, you can channel flip when you're watching the boxing. So if there's a fight there that doesn't take like you fancy or you're not interested, you can flick off the channel and then come back again to watch the ones that you are interested for.
Like when
As
you
a
come on.
Funny.
Channel flicker. I'm a mad channel flicker.
More like when you're on it.
Drives me mad.
some of the fights that they've got on. I mean, 18th of December, you got Josh Taylor versus Jack Catterall. Great fight. You've got another Boxxerr tournament 6th of November. October 24th, you've got Jamal Herring versus Shakur Stevenson. As I mentioned, Chris Eubank Jr. is going to be fighting as well on Sky Sports. You've got the Joshua Usyk fight. So they have put on some really, really good shows. James, just want to get.
What weight's that boxer tournament?
I'm not too sure. I haven't got the full information here. All I know is that they're putting on a tournament on 6th of November. They've not released much details in terms of the tournament and who's going to be participating in it itself. But as I mentioned, one guy that will obviously be with closely to Sky Sports now is Chris Eubank Jr. He can fight at 154, so there's a potential fight there for Kieron, maybe at one stage, or Kieron might even not like the fact of going up to 160. But Chris Eubank Jr., I expected a bigger name for his next fight, but it turns out he's fighting Sven Elber. I believe he's got one loss on his career. Guys, thoughts on the opponent and what should Chris Eubank Jr. be doing right now in his career, considering where he's at and how much experience he's got?
I don't know the opponent.
Is I've seen the name. I don't know who he is, but like Chris got a fight there, so he's got to focus on that opponent, whoever he is, however he turns up. He's just got to do the job and beat what's in front of him. Just focus on that for now. Put a good performance on. Let everyone on Sky that's watching Sky see who you are again, and yeah, just absolutely smash it. And that's all you got to do with whoever's in front of him.
One fight that a lot of people have discussed is Gennady Golovkin. From what you've seen of Chris Eubank Jr. since he's been teaming up with Roy Jones Jr., and I know we've only seen one fight, but we've got to give him the benefit of the doubt. It is only one fight. We'd like to see Chris Eubank fight more. A lot of people were saying that was the next fight for Chris Eubank Jr. Golovkin is the right fight for him. Let's say he gets past this guy in his next fight. Can he beat a Gennady Golovkin?
Maybe. Why not?
Maybe.
Why not?
Golovkin's getting old now.
Golovkin's on his way down as well. Let's be fair. He's getting on. He's getting old. I'd fancy my chances, to be fair. I'd get in there. Being deadly serious, I'll go there and I'll win that fight. I'll do what I've got to do to win.
If this is the fight that people are talking about, you can tell Triple G's on his way out, and he's been through the ranks now. Because a couple of years ago, you wouldn't even be mentioning Eubank Jr. and Triple G in the same ring. So I think it could be a good fight for Eubank Jr. if it goes ahead. But obviously, I still think Triple G beats him. I think he's still got the beating.
Well, it's just a case of how much he's taken from being trained by Roy Jones Jr. And I like to think that Roy Jones Jr. can take him to the next level. But a lot of people say that Eubank Jr. doesn't have the discipline and he doesn't like to listen to whoever's in his corner. But can Roy Jones Jr. take Eubank Jr. to the next level, guys?
I've never seen Roy Jones Jr.'s coaching, to be fair. Has he trained anyone before?
I believe this is one of his first rodeos.
Yeah, so we'll have to see. He's I guess Chris Eubank is his like, it's his first one, isn't it? It's his debut training thing. So it's just, we're gonna have to see if he does, he does. It'll be interesting to see the journey anyway. I'm sure he's gonna have a few more good fights, and potentially that GGG fight is there.
Well, like I said, listen, it's interesting to see how he gets on, and I'm really interested to see what he can do in the big fights. You know, no disrespect to this guy, but obviously everyone's expecting Eubank Jr. to walk through him. But it's all about what he does against the likes of the Golovkins or maybe one of the Charlos or even the rematch with Billy Joe Saunders. Guys, that's all we've got time for on tonight's podcast. I can see I've taken up enough of your time, and I know you guys like to get into bed nice and early to get back into routine. So a massive thank you to Eithan, Kieron, and James. I don't know where he's disappeared to, but listen, let's give James the benefit of the doubt. He managed to start and he almost got to the finishing line, so you can't knock it from a guy that is not good with the latest technology. But guys, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be sharing your links in the description below. Kieron, before we go, what's going to happen on October the 9th when you get in the ring with JJ Metcalf?
I think we touched on it. He'll come out thinking that he can outman me, out muscle me, and I'm going to be honest with you. His only chance of winning this fight is if he knocks me out. And we've all been hit hard before. I've been hit very hard before. I take a good shot. I spar with heavyweights. I spar big men.
Spar me.
He's not gonna knock me out. And that was his only chance. So he can't outbox me. He can't stay long. And if he comes in short, I'm too big. And I don't see what else he's got to rely on. He's gonna have to. The only way he's gonna win is if he loads up from last week, lands clean. That's his only chance. So I just think I'm a step ahead. I'm going to be a step ahead on the night, 100%. I'm coming into this one firing on all cylinders. I'm going to be very ready.
Well, listen, we're ready as well. Great night of boxing, great fights. Main event as well is pretty good as well, but I'm definitely looking forward to this one. You know, that 154 division, and there's going to be some big bangers there to look out for in the future. Eithan, Kieron, thank you very much once again for your time. And
Cheers.
obviously, I'll message James on Twitter. I don't know what's happened to him right now, but you know, again, he started off and he almost got to the finishing line.
He's
And
probably
the views
still
and
talking
if
to his computer.
Let's hope not. First sign of madness if he's talking to himself.
Yeah.
But guys, if you can, please hit that subscribe button. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, please make sure you hit the follow button. And again, make sure you give these guys a follow on social media. We'll be sharing the links in the platform description below. And thank you to listening to episode 38 of the Lights Out Boxing podcast.